So in preparation for fitting all of this malarkey, I've already honed out the inside of the cylinder, and it's got a load of two-stroke oil in it just to lubricate it. So my first preparation job is to make sure that the piston ring gap is correct. So what I'm aiming for is, because this is above a 125, we're aiming for between 0.2 of a mil and 0.6 of a mil. So the way to do this, I believe, is at the top end of the cylinder, put it in, push it down at least a centimetre or so, and then measure the gaps. And I can use the use the piston to push it down. So that's going to be my first job. Right. If I use a piston to push it down, it's going to be reasonably square. And you can see already there is almost no gap at all there. So this is 0.2, and that ain't going in. So what I'm going to need to do is use a little file and just gently file away a little bit on this side and a little bit on this side. And I have to keep checking. You can see a tiny gap there now, but it's still not going to be 0.2 of a mil. 0.2, it kind of it almost squeezes in now, so I think I just need to do a little bit more. Hopefully this will come out on camera. The 0.2 now slides in, so that works. The 0.3 also slides in, so that's good. So it's got enough room. I'm happy with that. Trying to do all this one-handed. 0.4 doesn't quite go in, so 0.4 won't go in. So if we now try let's try 0.35. Oh, that is just biting. That's not quite going in. So this gap, I haven't got anything in between those, I don't think. So this gap here is between 0.3 and 0.35. So I think I'm happy with that. That's well nicely in the tolerance. So I now need to do the other one. So what I've actually done, a bit more tinkering around, and I've now got both piston rings exactly at, that won't show up on camera, no way Jose, but I've got them at 0.45. That just slides in at 0.45. The other one's the same. So when I look at my original notes, 0.2 to 0.6, and I've got them both at that. So I'm happy with that. So I can probably start building now. So a point to note here is that on the piston that's come with this 185 kit, if I don't know whether this is going to show up on camera, but if I measure the space where the bearing is going to sit, we're looking at around about 25 millimeters. and the original small end bearing that came with the kit is actually only 19 mil wide, which meant when I did a sort of a bit of a calculations, there's going to be an awful lot of that moving around. Now it does need to float, I appreciate that, but it's moving across, and part of the bearings can actually show either side of the small end of the crankshaft. So what I've done, I did a bit of research, and you can fit, for when you've got these wider pistons, you can fit a slightly wider small end bearing. So this is about 22 mil wide, so you can see that we've got just a little bit more meat on either side of it. So I'm actually going to go with this slightly wider bearing. It can still float, so the piston can self-center, that's okay, but I'm going to go with this new bearing. First job, I need to fit one of these circlips into one side of the piston. Oops, got away with murder there. Now you can't see it, but I'm going to try and cover it in case it bings out again. So the gudgeon pin is then going to end up getting pushed through that way, and then I've got one to put on the other side. So if I just start it off, there, so it's kind of part way in. Shed some light on the matter, literally. Right, so put some 2-stroke oil on the small end bearing, please note, not gear oil. Cramp to play with, so that's going to slot in there. Jubbly. Now then, when the piston goes on, the arrow needs to point towards the exhaust port, which is down because the carb is going to be on top. So essentially it's going to go in like this. Not really much to see on camera, I'm afraid. So that's now pushed up against, maybe I'll just unclip it. So the gudgeon pin is now pushed through up against that circlip on that side, and I've now got enough room to fit a circlip on this side. I think that looks in okay, so we have the piston. Right, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do a bit of a test fit with the cylinder, sorry, the sort of base gasket, the cylinder, the head gasket and the head. Bolt it all down. I can test the squish gap but I'm not going to use any sealant or anything like that at this point. I just want to make sure that the measurements are correct. Then I can relatively easily take those bits off. I'm going to probably use a little bit of gasket sealant as well as the gaskets, put it all back together, and then I'm probably in a position then next time to do the leak down test. So let's have a go at assembly. So I have a base gasket. So what I did with the base gasket, I actually went round it and just cut it to match the ports. So I'm going to put the cylinder on. That's the exhaust port is down below, and the piston has definitely got the arrow pointing down to the exhaust port. I'm not bothering with the, because I'm going to take it apart again, I'm not bothering with the piston rings for this moment. Nice. And the head gasket. There. Ooh, it looks a bit like an engine. Okay, so as we're putting this on and making it look like an engine, what I've noticed, this is obviously quite a rough casting, so I think I can get my socket onto there, just about onto there and onto there, but on this one there's no way I can get a socket on, and I have to torque it down correctly. So I think what I'm going to have to do is take the head off. I need to just take away a tiny bit, grind away a tiny bit off this top fin here, and while I'm there I can get rid of, there's a few sharp bits around here, I'll just get rid of those anyway I think. So can't quite do exactly what I want to do at this moment, but I think that's my next job, is to just tidy this up a little bit so that I can actually torque it down correctly. Right, so what I've managed to do is shave away the end of that fin, give enough space to get a socket wrench in there. I've tidied up a little bit of this other bits around here, but they don't really matter. And then I've shaved away a little bit off that fin, not very much, and I've tested. I can now get my socket into both of those, so hopefully now I can button this down and we can test the squish gap. So we've now got a cleaned up head, so what I'm going to do is, I've got the gasket on, I'm going to pop this on. Up, spin the crank. So I'm going to put this into the spark plug hole, and we're going to push it right to the far side. Right, so we've definitely got a squash. So what size is it? 1.1, 1.8, 1.1. So it's around about 1 millimetre. So having kind of measured around a little bit, I'm getting readings of around about basically kind of 1.2, which I think is absolutely fine. This is definitely something I've not really done before, so I'm just wondering, okay, after much to and froing, I'm still getting one really low squish reading on this bottom side of the piston up against the head. I'm getting like, you know, 0.8, 0.7, and that's below the recommended. I don't know enough, but I'm worried that the piston might even sort of top out against the head if it's such a small gap. So my current head gasket is kind of, I think is, let's have a quick check, it's 0.5 of a mil thickness. So if I can get a new head gasket which is maybe 0.7, 0.8, that should give me that little bit of extra clearance to make me feel a little bit happier. I'll order. Okay, so we're a few days on now, so what I've done is I've ordered some gaskets, both base gaskets and head gaskets of different thicknesses. First of all, I've got some still 0.5 mil base gaskets. I got a couple of those, but I then also bought a couple of 1 mil base gaskets, and in fact the quality of these is like 10 times better than the ones that came with the kit, so I'm very pleased with those. And in fact the outline fits the ports much better than the other one did as well, so I'm pleased with those. And then more importantly, I've got some different head gaskets. So I've got one here which is 1 millimeter thick as opposed to the original 0.5 millimeter. And it's about 0.5 millimeter that I was out with the squish distance. So I'm hoping that this extra gasket, or this change of gasket, is going to give me the squish distance that I need. With regard to it's actually the squish distance all the way around here is absolutely fine. Obviously there's nothing around this side anyway, but around here is fine. It was about 1.1, 1.2 of a millimeter, but here, level with this blue bit there, it was only 0.6, 0.7 of a millimeter, which is a bit too small. So I'm hoping that the 1 millimeter gasket is going to add an extra 0.5 millimeter to that, which is then going to give me my appropriate squish distance. That is the plan. So what I'm going to do, same as last time, I'm going to mount it all first without any sealant, do a check, take it all off when I'm happy, hopefully, and then put it all on with the sealant. That is the plan. Yeah, baby. So it's now 1.2 millimeters. So that right, we have top end completed, piston rings adjusted, squish distance adjusted. We've got crank and front sprocket all sorted. We've got a tension chain. We've got the gearbox fitted. We've got the clutch fitted. I think now that is basically everything in that half of the engine sorted. So next job will be to sort out the side case, which is basically just the kickstart mechanism and the clutch lever, which will push that in. And then we've got an engine built. Obviously that doesn't include yet the flywheel, stator plate, carburetor, that kind of stuff, but the actual mechanics, we're done.